She wasn't wearing it. The ring. The first thing I noticed when she handed me the coffee was the bare circle of skin on her finger, pale, unmarked, and suddenly impossible not to look at. I told myself it didn't matter, that maybe she'd taken it off for a reason that had nothing to do with me. But the silence between us said otherwise. It wasn't awkward. It was charged, like a conversation we hadn't started yet but both already felt. She sat across from me, the morning light soft on her face. A few strands of hair had fallen loose from her bun, catching the sunlight like threads of gold. She looked tired, not in a way that begged for rest, but in the way someone does when they've carried something too heavy for too long. "You're quiet today," she said, wrapping her hands around her cup. Her voice was steady, warm. The kind of voice that fills a space even when she's saying very little. I smiled, maybe a little too late. "Just listening." "To what?" I hesitated. "To you." She looked away then, just slightly, as if my words had crossed a line neither of us meant to draw. Her eyes softened, but her mouth pressed into a faint, thoughtful smile. The kind that hides more than it reveals. The room was too still. I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator, the clink of her spoon against the mug. Everything ordinary felt amplified, intimate. When she reached for the sugar, her fingers brushed mine, light, unplanned, but enough to freeze every thought in my head. She didn't move her hand right away. Neither did I. Then, slowly, she pulled back, pretending to adjust her sleeve. "Old habits," she murmured. "I forget myself sometimes." I wanted to ask what that meant, but the words felt too fragile for the air between us. Instead, I said, "You don't have to." She looked up. For a heartbeat, it was all there, the loneliness, the pull, the question neither of us wanted to voice. Her eyes flickered to my lips and back again. Then she exhaled, quiet and deliberate, as if reminding herself to breathe. I told myself I was only imagining it, the way she leaned closer when she spoke, how her perfume lingered when she stood. But I wasn't imagining the way her voice lowered when she said my name. Like she was afraid someone might hear, even though no one was there. Outside, rain began to fall, soft at first, then steady. She moved to close the window, and I followed, standing behind her. For a moment, my reflection merged with hers in the glass, her steady, mine uncertain. "You should go," she said softly, not turning around. "I know." But neither of us moved. Her hand tightened around the window frame. "This isn't right," she whispered. "Then why does it feel like it is?" She turned to face me, and for the first time, I saw her without the practiced calm she always carried. Her breath hitched, eyes searching mine as if waiting for me to take responsibility for what we were both thinking. "I took it off last night," she said, almost too quietly. "The ring." "Why?" She opened her mouth to answer, but before she could, the front door creaked open. We froze. A man's voice called her name from the hallway. Her lips parted, not in fear, but something else. Regret. And before I could say a word, she whispered, "Don't move." He didn't come inside that day, the man at the door. Just called her name, asked about something trivial, and left with a quick goodbye. But the sound of his voice lingered, like smoke that refused to fade. After the door shut, she stood there for a long moment, staring at nothing. Her hand was still on the doorknob, her shoulders tight, her breathing uneven. I wanted to ask who he was. I didn't. I just watched her, the way her composure slowly stitched itself back together. She turned finally, her smile a little too practiced. "You should go now," she said. But the way her voice trembled told me she didn't really want me to. That night, I couldn't stop replaying it. Her eyes, her words, that moment before everything broke. I didn't know why she mattered so much already. Maybe because she was the first person who ever looked at me like I wasn't still figuring life out. The next morning, I went to see her again, an excuse about returning the book she'd lent me. She opened the door wearing a soft gray sweater, her hair undone, her expression unreadable. "You didn't have to bring it back so soon," she said. "I couldn't sleep," I admitted. Something in her softened. Neither could I. We sat in the kitchen again, same place, different air. It wasn't awkward this time. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that says more than words. She told me then, not everything, but enough. That she'd been married young. That the man I'd heard was her ex-husband, still stopping by to check in. That some habits die slow, even when the love is long gone. I listened. Really listened. Maybe too closely. Because when her voice cracked just slightly, I had to stop myself from reaching across the table. You ever love someone who made you forget who you were? She asked suddenly. I thought for a second, then said, maybe I'm still doing that. Her eyes met mine, a small flicker, like she'd just been caught in something dangerous. Don't, she whispered, looking away. Why not? Because people talk, she said. And you're too young to understand what they'll say. The age gap, the unspoken line we both already knew was there. But in that moment, it felt like nothing more than a thin thread between us, ready to snap. She stood to make tea, and when she passed behind me, her hand brushed my shoulder, just barely. My breath caught, but I didn't move. Neither did she. Her touch lingered for a second too long before she pulled away. When she turned back, her eyes were softer, warmer, a quiet apology that wasn't really an apology at all. Maybe it's better if you stop coming here, she said. Do you want that? Her silence said everything. The kettle whistled, breaking the moment, but the air between us stayed thick, alive. She handed me a cup, fingers brushing mine again, and this time, she didn't let go right away. Her voice dropped low, almost trembling. You should go before I forget what's right. I nodded. But when I turned to leave, she stopped me with just two words, quiet, fragile, and full of everything she couldn't say. Come tomorrow. The next day, I told myself I wouldn't go. And yet there I was, standing at her doorstep again, hands buried in my pockets, pretending I had a reason to be there. She opened the door slowly, as if she already knew I'd come anyway. You don't listen, do you? She said softly. Not when I shouldn't, I replied. For a moment, she just looked at me, that same unreadable stare that always made me forget what I came for. Then, with a quiet sigh, she stepped aside. Fine. Just for a little while. The house felt different this time. The lights dimmer, the air warmer. The scent of her perfume hung in the air like a secret she'd stopped trying to hide. She was rearranging books on a shelf when I noticed her phone buzz on the counter, his name flashing on the screen. I shouldn't have seen it, but she noticed my eyes shift. Don't, she said quickly. It's nothing. But the way she turned away, pressing her hand to her temple, told me it was something. You don't have to explain, I said. I know, she whispered, but her voice was strained. That's the problem. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful this time, it was sharp, trembling. Every sound in the room felt louder, the tick of the clock, the hum of the fridge, the uneven rhythm of our breaths. Then she dropped a book, it hit the floor between us with a dull thud. We both bent down at the same time. Our hands brushed. Neither of us moved. Her eyes lifted inches from mine, her lips parting just slightly. I could feel her breath, soft, unsteady, and the world seemed to pause there, in that fragile, impossible distance. Don't look at me like that, she murmured. How? Like I'm someone you shouldn't want. I can't help it. Her lips curved, not quite a smile. You'll regret saying that. Before I could answer, the sound of a knock shattered the air. She froze. I stood. A voice called through the door, a friend, a neighbor, I couldn't tell. Her expression changed instantly. Calm mask. Straight posture. Stay quiet, she whispered. I watched her walk to the door, answer like nothing was wrong, her tone light and steady, as if I wasn't standing a few feet away, pulse racing. When the door closed again, she leaned against it, exhaling slowly. This can't happen, she said, more to herself than to me. I took a step closer. Then why are you shaking? Her eyes flicked up to mine, startled, caught alive. She tried to speak but couldn't. The words just didn't come. So I said the one thing I wasn't supposed to. Tell me to go, and I will. Her silence burned. She didn't tell me to go. And when she finally looked up, eyes glassy, lips trembling, I knew we'd crossed something we couldn't uncross. She whispered, almost to herself, "I can't do this." But she didn't move away. Neither did I. It had been days since I saw her, but her silence felt louder than any words she could have said. Every message I didn't send, every night I didn't knock on her door, it all pressed down like a weight I couldn't shake. When I finally saw her again, it wasn't planned. She was standing by her car in the fading light, keys trembling slightly in her hand. "You've been avoiding me," I said. She looked up, startled, guarded. "You make it sound easy to do otherwise." I stepped closer, careful, but unable to stop myself. "Then don't." Her eyes softened, then hardened again. "You don't understand. People talk. They always do. I don't care what people say." She laughed quietly, but it cracked halfway through. "That's because you haven't lived long enough for it to matter." There it was, the wall she always hid behind. But tonight she didn't sound so sure of it. "I waited," I said. "But I don't know what I'm waiting for anymore." She turned away, pretending to fix the strap of her purse, but her voice faltered. "You shouldn't have." The wind moved through her hair, and before she could pull it back, I reached out, fingers brushing a loose strand from her face. She froze, eyes flickering between defiance and something softer. "You shouldn't look at me like that," she whispered. Then stopped looking back. That made her breath hitch. I felt it more than I heard it. She stepped back against the car, nowhere left to move. I was close enough to see the pulse in her throat, to feel the warmth of her breath against my skin. "This isn't fair," she said, voice trembling. "To who?" "To me," she breathed. "Because you make me forget why I shouldn't want this." The world shrank around us, the faint hum of passing traffic fading, the last light of sunset stretching over her skin. Her hand brushed mine, unintentional, maybe, but she didn't pull away. "You think this is just attraction," she said quietly. "But you don't know what it costs." "Then tell me," I said. "Show me." Her jaw tightened, tears barely held back. "I can't." But the way her voice broke betrayed her. So I stepped closer, slow, steady, until there was only breath between us. Her hand came up, resting against my chest, not to stop me but to steady herself. Her fingers trembled. "Don't," she whispered. But her eyes said do. The air between us felt alive, every heartbeat, every unspoken word thrumming in that small space. "If I kiss you," I said quietly, "there's no going back." "I know." She didn't move. Neither did I. And just as I leaned in, just as the space between us vanished, the sound of her phone broke through the air. A name flashed on the screen. Her husband's. Her eyes widened. My heart stopped. The phone kept ringing. Neither of us moved. Her eyes were still locked on mine, but something behind them had shifted. Fear, maybe, or guilt, or both. She finally turned away, breathing unsteady, pressing a hand against her temple like she was trying to erase the moment. "He wasn't supposed to call," she murmured. "He never calls anymore." That single line landed like a confession. "Then why now?" I asked quietly. She shook her head, stepping away, arms folded tightly across her chest. "Because he knows. Or maybe he just feels it." I didn't know what to say. I wanted to reach for her, but she looked fragile in a way I hadn't seen before, not the confident woman who walked through every room like she belonged, but someone holding too many secrets in trembling hands. "Tell me," I said finally. "What's really going on?" She laughed, short and bitter. "You want honesty? Fine." When she turned back to me, her eyes glistened, not with anger, but truth. "He left 6 months ago. I still wear the ring because I thought it made the guilt easier to live with." My chest tightened. "You're not married anymore?" "No," she whispered. But I'm not free either. The words hit harder than I expected. I didn't even realize I'd stepped closer until she drew in a shaky breath, caught between wanting to back away and not being able to. You lied, I said, not accusation, more disbelief. I didn't lie, she replied softly. I just didn't tell you. Because if I did this, she gestured weakly between us, would feel too real. Her voice cracked, and for a second either of us moved. The air felt heavier now, thick with what we'd both tried to ignore. She looked at me again, her face inches away, and I could feel her trembling even before she spoke. You make me want things I've already ruined once. Then let me want them for you, I said quietly. Her breath caught. Don't say that. Why not? Because you mean it, she whispered, and her voice broke again. For a long moment, there were no words, just our breaths, uneven and close. Her hand brushed mine, just barely, but enough to make every nerve in my body wake up. She stepped past me, but not without grazing my arm, slow and unintentional, leaving warmth that lingered long after. Maybe it's better if I end this, she said, before it becomes something I can't control. I turned, voice low. It already is. She stopped in the doorway, eyes flicking to the empty space where her wedding ring used to be. Her fingers twitched as if remembering the weight of it. And then she said the one thing that changed everything. He called because he's coming back. The rain started without warning, soft at first, then steady, tapping against the glass like a quiet reminder that time was running out. She stood by the window, arms wrapped around herself, staring out as if the storm might somehow decide for her. I could feel it, the distance she was trying to rebuild between us. It was fragile, forced, trembling. He'll be here tomorrow, she said finally, her voice barely above the sound of the rain. He wants to talk. About you, I said. About everything, she replied. About what's left. The words twisted something deep inside me. I should have stepped back, given her the space she clearly wanted. But I couldn't. Not when she looked like that, torn between what she'd lost and what she was afraid to keep. Tell me to leave, I said quietly. She didn't. I moved closer. Slowly. Deliberately. The sound of the rain filled the silence between us, and her breath grew shallow as I stopped just behind her. You shouldn't be here, she whispered. Then say it. She turned finally. Her eyes met mine, and in them, every unspoken word we'd been holding back flickered to life. Her voice trembled. It's not fair to want you. I shook my head. Then don't call it fair. Just call it real. For a heartbeat we said nothing. Her hand rose, hesitant, almost unwilling, and brushed against my chest, stopping just over my heart. The touch was light, but it burned through me like heat. I don't know how to stop this, she admitted, the words fragile and dangerous all at once. You don't have to, I said. Her eyes softened, not with surrender, but with recognition. Like she finally saw what we both already knew, we'd crossed a line long before this moment. The space between us disappeared. Not with a kiss. Not yet. But with something heavier, a closeness that said everything words couldn't. Her forehead rested against mine, and for a moment, I felt her exhale, slow, shaking, real. This will ruin me, she breathed. Maybe it'll save you, I whispered back. Her laugh was barely a sound, half disbelief, half ache. You really think love can save people? No, I said. But sometimes it keeps them alive. Her fingers tightened in my shirt. The rain outside grew louder, like it was pushing us closer, daring us to make the choice either of us wanted to name. And then, just as her lips brushed the edge of my jaw, she pulled back, eyes glistening, chest rising unevenly. If I do this, she said softly, I can't go back. I met her gaze. Then don't. The silence that followed felt infinite. Every breath, every heartbeat, every drop of rain, all of it built to that single, fragile truth between us. She looked at me one last time, not with fear, not with guilt, but with clarity. and then she closed the distance. No more hesitation. No more pretending. Just two people who finally stopped lying to themselves. The morning after the storm was impossibly still, the kind of quiet that only comes when everything that needed to be said has finally been spoken. Light crept through the curtains, brushing across the room in slow gold. She was sitting by the window again, hair loose, knees drawn close, wearing my shirt like it had always belonged to her. For a while, neither of us moved. The air between us wasn't heavy anymore, it just was. Calm. Real. When I finally walked over, she looked up, and there was that same half-smile that used to unravel me. Only now, it didn't hide behind guilt. "You stay," she said softly. "I wasn't sure I should," I admitted. "But I didn't want to wake up wondering what it would have felt like, to stay." She studied me for a long second, eyes full of something I couldn't name. "You don't make it easy to be careful," she murmured. I laughed quietly, sitting down beside her. "You don't make it easy to walk away." Outside, the world looked washed clean, the trees still glistening from the rain, the sky a pale, forgiving blue. Her hand was on the sill, fingers tapping absently against the wood. I reached out, covering them with mine. She didn't pull away. Her thumb brushed the back of my hand, tracing slow, absent circles. "You know this doesn't make sense," she whispered. "I know," I said. "But maybe it doesn't have to." A small silence followed. The kind that holds peace instead of pain. She leaned her head against my shoulder, eyes closing for just a breath. "I thought losing the ring would mean losing myself," she said after a while. "But maybe I was already gone long before that." I turned to her, catching the faintest tremor in her voice. "Then maybe this isn't losing," I said. "Maybe it's finding." Her lips curved, slow and tired and true. "You always say the right thing, don't you?" "No," I smiled. "Just the thing I can't hold in anymore." We stayed like that, not needing to fill the silence. Her head rested against my shoulder, our fingers intertwined, the world outside quietly forgiving us for everything we'd been afraid to want. She sighed, almost to herself. "I don't know what happens next." I squeezed her hand gently. "Then we'll find out. One day at a time." She looked at me then, really looked. And for the first time since all of it began, her eyes weren't guarded. They were open. Honest. Warm. When she leaned forward, it wasn't desperate. It wasn't reckless. It was simply right. Her lips brushed my forehead, lingering, a quiet promise that didn't need words. And in that moment, all the fear, all the guilt, all the what-ifs finally fell away. It wasn't perfect. But it was real. And for us, that was enough. I stood there, heart pounding, as she looked at me with a kind of sadness that already felt like goodbye. But her eyes lingered too long. And I knew this wasn't over.